What's up, you absolutely wonderful Magento loving friends of mine? Joseph here with another practice test question. But before we begin, I just wanted to say just how much I enjoyed this past weekend in Meet Magento, New York City. I met a lot of my friends, saw them again, and but also unfortunate that I know more of you were not able to make it for a whole variety of reasons. It is what it is. I understand how that works, but it just makes me look forward to as we do return more and more to these in-person events, pushing the virtual behind us. Obviously grateful for virtual, but looking forward to the future as we get to meet in person, say hi in person, and have real conversations in person. It's really powerful. And yeah, this last weekend was powerful, and I hope to be able to see and to meet you all here in the future whenever our paths do cross. Now, that said, let's jump into our practice test question. This one, I believe, would fit on the expert developer, perhaps the master architect test, and it's covering RabbitMQ. I know there is still a good contingent of even you out there who do not have a good understanding of RabbitMQ, and through these questions, I'm hopeful to turn that around. So let's dive into this question. You are troubleshooting failed event observers in a RabbitMQ consumer. Random events are not properly executed, while others do execute as expected. Which two true statements do you use to help guide your debugging efforts? I've not done a question like this before. This is kind of out of the ordinary. And I'm actually looking forward to walking through the answers on here and to determine the correct answer because, well, ultimately in the past, if like the right answer was A, then it was like kind of we lose all our steam, and when going through 2, 3, and 4, B, C, and D, it's like, well, why do we even talk about those? In this case, we're going to have some interesting answers. And again, this is covering the architecture of RabbitMQ, but it gives you the foundation point with which the knowledge with which you will be able to solve and troubleshoot problems. So let's see what this looks like here. Class variables A are not cleared between incoming RabbitMQ messages. Okay. The consumer CLI B operates outside the normal context of CLI commands. C, an execution is thrown in an event observer, prevents subsequent executions. It's like I'm having trouble talking today. I did a lot of talking over the weekend. Maybe that's what's happening. Let's keep going. D, Magento recommends the use of parallelized RabbitMQ consumers. All right, so let's break this down one by one. Class variables are not cleared between incoming RabbitMQ messages. True or false? Well, let's go jump in the code, take a look. All right, we have our consumer right here. We have a get transaction callback, and this is ultimately where this message is executed, and we have our dispatch message, etc. Let's copy that one in. All right, so we see that it is called here process, subscribe, etc. So we could even back up to the CLI command, and we have our execute method here. We can call consumer process, which we'll jump down to our consumer process right here, and basically some minor differences, but it is basically the same. So what I'm seeing is that class variables, so if for anything that's stored in the object manager, those class variables are not cleared between incoming RabbitMQ messages. And this can be a really big deal. How is this a big deal? Well, because if they're not cleared, then we have to be very careful with values that are set in them and then not cleared. Or, for example, let's say that we have a class, we have a value set on it, and that value caches the first order number that is this class touches. Fine, okay? So, but then RabbitMQ sends another message. Well, that already has the first order number that was touched. So it's basically now on the second message, it's returning the first order number information, which is incorrect. But then guess what? Let's say it's past its like window of usefulness or whatever, and the consumer is shut down. It's shut down. Now those class variables are cleared out. So now when we have order number 3, it has class variable. It has the class variable matches. Well, let's say it's now shut down again. Okay, so now we have 4. And now it's 4 pops up. But then we have a second message sent to that 4th consumer, and it's order number 5, but it loads order number 4. You see how this works. We are randomly loading the wrong order for this processing. So that can be very, very dangerous. So I would say A is true. Let's keep going. All right, the consumer CLI operates outside the normal context of CLI commands. All right, let's take a look at this. Well, here is a start consumer command, which is pulled up in the module message queue, console directory, or namespace. And this extends command, which is a Symfony console command, like every single other one of the Magento commands. This looks pretty much like a normal command, so I think B is false. There's nothing special about a RabbitMQ consumer. It's executed in the normal list of CLI commands. So that means that if there is performance issues or whatever, then it will execute. Then those will also happen here. One thing to keep in mind is that Magento does do a full application initialization. In other words, every single CLI command is actually initialized, if you can believe that, which means that if there is dependency injection configuration or database access, this is usually a bigger deal when actually building the Magento application, like in CI/CD or whatever. But yeah, that can create a real problem. So yes, so B would be false. We have A is true, B is false. So out of C and D, naturally, we have a winner and we have a loser. Let's see what these are. So C is an exception thrown in an event observer prevents subsequent executions. All right, now let's come over here. We're specifically talking about event observers, and we kind of have a hunch that there's something causing a problem here. So let's look at our, here's quote management. I pulled out an event here. Event manager dispatch, we fire this off, drop down here. Actually, no, that was the wrong one. We're gonna come over here to our event manager. And we have our dispatch. Okay, I don't see anything in here, and we can come in here as well. There is nothing in here that stops or logs or whatever this method from actually running. So if an event observer crashes, the entire process could theoretically crash. And in fact, I am not seeing anything here in the consumer, all the way from the top of the consumer CLI command all the way through, that would prevent such an exception from handling. So C is also correct, which means by process of elimination, D is incorrect. D is an interesting one, and something I really wish Magento would add into this is the ability to parallelize consumers. I see no documentation. I have not seen anything anywhere that allows for consumers to be parallelized. We've actually run some bottlenecks on RabbitMQ, which would probably be the biggest downside, which is ultimately fixed by adding more consumers, which is fine. It is a solution, however, it does cause problems with being asynchronous. Basically, like if you have the messages in one queue that technically need to run before the messages in the other queue, that can become a problem if you use multiple queues. So there is no such thing as parallelized RabbitMQ consumers in Magento, to which I am aware. If there is, please tell me. I would be thrilled to hear that. Very, very happy to hear that. So let me know. And as we onwards, upwards, let's hit our destination of being absolutely fantastic e-commerce developers. Keep up the good work.